Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar series, The Science of Reading is for Everyone. My name is Laura Almazara, and I'm a marketing manager at Amplify. Today's webinar will be recorded, and we'll email out the recording link tomorrow for you to rewatch as you'd like. And everyone here with us today will also receive a certificate of attendance in that email. Today, we have a live captioner with us, so if you want to access the captions, simply click on Live Transcript in the bottom tray. Throughout the webinar, if you have any questions, please pop them in the Q&A, and we'll try to get to them at the end. We welcome comments in the chat, and to start, let's find out where everyone is joining us from today and what your role in education is. Hi, Mina from Dallas. Welcome. We have a few people from Texas, from California, from all over the US. Oh, we have someone from Bangladesh. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. We have so many people from all over the world who have joined us. We really appreciate you taking the time to come to us today and learn more about centering multiple perspectives in knowledge building. Just a quick note, we have many more webinars scheduled for this series. This is just the second of 12 we're doing. So if you haven't already signed up for more, please do. You can do so by visiting amplify.com/SOR everyone. Next week, we are hosting 3 webinars, 2 of which will feature Dr. Lillian Duran, who will be talking about assessment for dual language learners. And our featured presentation next week is with Natalie Wexler, who's going to be joining us to update us on the latest on the knowledge gap. Again, to find out more about more of these webinars or to watch past recordings, just go to amplify.com/SOR-everyone. And we are so excited today. We have Baria, Jennings, and Tory Novikova here with us to share information about the importance in providing windows and mirrors for students to inspire curiosity and inquiry, as well as new Amplify Core Knowledge Language Arts product options designed to do just that. Baria is a senior content developer for Amplify CKLA and has over 20 years of preschool to 12 experience. She's been an elementary teacher, administrator, researcher, and professor of cultural studies and education. She is thrilled to have collaborated with her CKLA colleagues to add new K-5 knowledge research units to the CKLA curriculum. And Tory has been at Amplify for 10 years and has also taught undergraduate studies at Pratt Institute for several years in the communication design department. She was responsible for the creative vision of the new K2 skills readers and was deeply involved in the recruitment of the diverse team of illustrators that have since contributed to enriching Amplify CKLA with their unique voices and captivating artwork, which we will see later. And we can see in my background and Tory's background as well right now. She currently oversees the Humanities Design Department at Amplify as the Senior Director of Product Design, setting the creative direction for all print and digital product experiences across K-8. So ladies, welcome. We'd love to hear about centering multiple perspectives in knowledge building.
Thank you so much, Laura. And we are so very excited to be sharing all of this work, wonderful CKLA work with you today. We have some new things coming down the pipeline that we're so excited about. And also just to share a bit around this topic, centering multiple perspectives in knowledge building. We have people from all over. So thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy days to be here with us. I think we're going to dive right in. So we know that we come from this place of the science of reading here at Amplify, here at CKLA, and the science of reading is really important to us. In our discourse around the science of reading, we often go back to Scarborough's rope, which you see here, and it illustrates the many strands that are woven into skilled reading. We see those areas there on Scarborough's rope of language comprehension and word recognition, and all of the strands that are encompassed within. So I'd like to kick us off by taking a deeper look at Scarborough's rope first and foremost. And I want you to think about our topic today, centering multiple perspectives of knowledge building. And as you think about that, pop in the chat, tell us which of these two areas on Scarborough's rope, language comprehension and word recognition, do you think would be more apt to building students centers, help them center their perspectives around knowledge building? Drop it in the chat. Tell us which one you think. See some things coming through. Both. I love it. I love it. We have to synthesize, right? We think about building those connections. We see that connection strand. And so you're right. If you said language comprehension, definitely something that really helps in this building perspectives. And within the area of language comprehension itself, specifically which of the strands might provide the most opportunity for centering multiple perspectives? We have knowledge, vocabulary, sentences, connections, and gist. See some other things come. Yeah, see connections coming in there, knowledge. Awesome. It all works together, right? But I like us for this presentation to really hone in on the strand of connections, because connections are tied to, Scarborough would tell us, verbal reasoning, which refers to our ability to understand concepts expressed through language. Very important for our students. In other words, our students' abilities to extract meaning and information from text, think constructively, and apply logic lie right there in that strand. So how do we make that happen for students, right? That's can almost blow our minds sometimes as educators. How do we do that? This is often conceptual, since making connections and enacting verbal reasoning has to do with constructing meaning. How do we know what means something to kiddos? That is the quintessential teacher question of the day. So one way we think we can do that, right? We can help kids construct meaning is to literally poke at their curiosity through our own inquiry as teachers, educators, right? We want to ask the big questions and then let that simmer in their cognition. Give space for that. Encourage students' own questioning of the world while those big questions are simmering, the text and the content with which they are engaging. And then we need to, as educators, we think, step back, listen, and value our students' own questions, because it is often our students' questions that are the very answers we are seeking as their teachers. In short, today we'd like to really propose that you as educators really take a deep dive into encouraging two things: curiosity and inquiry. Those are powerful, powerful things. So we want to share a few curiously brilliant minds and share what they would say about that. Dr. Maya Angelou might say, curiosity fidgets, is hard to satisfy, looks for answers, even before forming questions. All right, it's a good one. Albert Einstein might say, curiosity is a delicate little plant that, aside from stimulation, stands mainly in need of freedom. We know Albert Einstein was quite curious. Anatole France might tell us, the whole art of teaching is only awakening the natural curiosity of young minds for the purpose of satisfying it afterwards. These all were brilliant quotes, right? And hopefully that helps to really provide a little bit of credibility as we start to dive into what it means to be curious and have inquiry and foster that in our students. So go on a journey with me. We want to take you on a journey for a moment. I want you to look at the stars with us here. And I want you to think about curiosity and inquiry. Think back to your earliest primary or elementary school memory of when you were really curious about something. It could be a historical event, something you heard or read in a book, an image, a video, something you just had to learn more about. Think about it for a second. We're really gonna do what we said and let that simmer. I want you to pop something in the chat if it comes to mind right away. What was your earliest memory of being curious that made you so curious? Think about it. If you can think of something right now, pop it in the chat. If not, we're going to have a little hashtag for you all to think about that further out in social media. Ooh, learning about whales. Ooh, Japan. Great things coming through in the chat. I love it. I love it. I think, Tory, we have a lot of curious inquirers out there. We're going to talk about what that means. I want to tell you all a story while those are still coming through. I really want to let you think about it more. But here's the story. So back in the 1900s, when I was a youngster, my first palpable memory of something that piqued my curiosity and appetite for additional knowledge was the Challenger explosion. I mean, I was so excited to see that rocket ship launch and then to see it engulf in flames. I didn't understand. My excitement for the launch immediately became an unquenchable curiosity. And I had questions. Why? How? Who were those astronauts? I had to know more. I had so many questions that my grandmother took me to the corner store in Brooklyn, where I grew up, and bought me a newspaper. And I started reading early, but we both knew there may be some words in that article I didn't know. But I was determined to read on this topic. First time ever picking up a newspaper. I was in the first grade. And that was the first article I read mostly on my own. As a first grader, I remember seeking my own knowledge. This was a palpable memory for me, right? Without the World Wide Web, no less. Remember, early 1900s. But that just skimmed the surface of my curiosity. This one historical event, this one opportunity to read a text that was a little bit more complex. And I began reading newspapers and magazines regularly, cutting and pasting articles and images that interested me, and making my own little scrapbooks at home. And then, almost like my teacher knew, she wanted us to bring in current events on. It was on Fridays. I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember when current events was a thing you brought in for show and tell. But to add to my own affinity for inquiry and curiosity, I started doing that and talking to the class, and I was always ready. And this is because I was the curious inquirer. We'd like to share with you sort of our heart here about every student having a curious inquirer button within their cognition. But the onus is on us to foster and make the connections with our content and instruction. So remember that hashtag curious inquirer. We love it if after this session you use that hashtag to share your own curious inquirer memory, or tell us a story about what your students have been curious about in their CKLA learning journeys. Because we believe that every student is a curious inquirer. And here's what sums it up for me. So here's how I synthesize it, right? I think about curiosity and inquiry, this lens that we're going to be exploring today. I'd like to propose to you that curiosity is a precursor of inquiry, and inquiry is a conduit of knowledge building, right? And bringing in some of the research around this thought of mine here, I want us to consider metacognition and the metacognitive theorist John Flavel, who I'm going to take some of us back to our education courses, who subscribes to Piaget's constructivist theory, and think about how for our students, how knowledge is constructed through what Flavel would say 4 metacognitive pathways. This is important as we want to build on that connection piece and center multiple perspectives. And the pathways are here. Here they are. Metacognitive knowledge. We want to build that knowledge for students, right? We want to spark it, just light the flame a little bit. Experience. Let them sort of get in it, experience it, satiate within it, and really help them to round out and construct meaning. Then build some goals. Maybe, what do I want to learn more? What would I like to learn more for myself? And those goals then need to be tied to actions for our students. See, when we allow students to inquire using this pathway, they get to sit with their own curiosity of the world while building background knowledge. We at CKLA feel really strongly about background knowledge, as you all may know. And through the active, informative process of building background knowledge that literature offers our students, much like me, I traveled. I started traveling through literature, right? Our students can literally travel anywhere, and their curiosities are boundless. The curiosity is innate and inherent in each child, right? Thumbs up or +1 if you believe that, because if you believe that, you're in the right place today. So we all can attest. We all can attest to the litany of questions that come from like a 5-year-old, right? The deductive reasoning is right there on the surface. We want to keep that going in our kids. We know that these questions, the asking more than anything, are so important because they give us a window literally into a child's cognition. Somewhere along the way, though, with the best pedagogical intentions, the best of them, our students' questions start to get muffled, right? And we as educators start to transpose our own curriculum-related questions on their cognition. I think we're all guilty of that if you taught for a while, right? But when we do this, we actually are stifling the metacognitive process that is outlined here. So within the science of reading, as we think about approaching that connection strand on Scarborough's rope, we must be intentional about etching out space for the student's voice, mirrors and windows that become the connective tissues, if you will, for verbal reasoning. So in that spirit, CKLA is very excited to announce that we have new K-5 knowledge research units that do just that. So hopefully you all will be excited to see some of these beautiful covers here. Those of you who've been teaching CKLA for a while, this is all new. These are going to be available for you back to school 2022. And here's what they're all about. So here's how that all comes together. There's going to be one for every grade level. There's going to actually be equity across our English and Spanish offerings because these research units are going to be in English and Spanish. They are going to be embedded with increased representation because remember, mirrors and windows, that's important for our kiddos. They need to see themselves. They need to have the opportunity to take themselves along for the journey, right? That literature provides for them. And then from a pedagogical perspective, this metacognitive piece, we know the curious and inquiry lens, these are all research and inquiry units. And so what does that mean? That means that students are asking their own questions throughout all of these units. They're getting to metacognitively put those questions down on No Wonder Learn charts and really have discussions around them and then research on their own, right? Look for text on their own. The way that we are doing that is we're opening up the landscape. We are teaching through trade books and open source articles, partnering with our partners at readworks.org and other open source websites. So with the help of teachers, students get to go on these research journeys and get their questions answered about these topics. So we're really excited about all of that. I see some excitement in the chat about that as well. So let's talk to you about what they are a little bit. In kindergarten, students are going to be curious inquirers as they learn about art and the world around them, right? Picasso tells us that every child is an artist, meaning that every child uses art to explore and understand the world around them in some way, right? Some tactile way. So art in the world around us honors that truth by introducing kindergarten students to some of the ways in which artists have explored and understood the world and natural landscapes around them too. In this unit, they'll learn about Georgia O'Keeffe and the Palo Duro Canyon, works by Amy Sherald, who you can see who did that wonderful Michelle Obama portrait there, Kende Wiley, and the sky spaces of James Turrell. True to the pedagogical spirit of these, the students are developing their own questions about an artist they are interested about, right? And a particular work of art, maybe even. They get to research their questions with the help of their teachers, and they get to use their research in an informational text, right? They get to write or draw, dictate their presentation, their findings, if you will, that answers their own question they had about an art piece they saw or heard about in the text. And then they get to compile a class book. We're gonna have a lot of fun in grade K. In grade 1, students go on adventures through the literature. So this unit is all about adventure stories, tales from the edge of the world. And from students go on adventures from below the ocean. You see Jack Cousteau there, to outer space even, with Mexican-American Ella Ochoa highlighted in one of the texts, right? Real world explorers, these are real adventures. So students get to kind of plant that seed. We get to plant that seed that they can be adventurers too. They can charter uncharted territory, more or less, right? They can go into these unknown places and discover, like Matthew Henson did, Eugenie Clark, and Sophia Dannenberg, who was the first African-American, only African-American woman to date to summit Mount Everest. They get to marvel at inventions and really think about what it means to do these things as teams, utilizing science and technology to make greater adventures possible. In this unit, students are asking questions, of course. They're gathering information. And in that culminating task, they write a paragraph about their findings. So you see, we're building along that K-5 continuum in developmentally appropriate ways for students to kind of push them a bit, right? And they get to share what they have learned about adventures in an adventure gallery walk. So there's that metacognitive experience there. In grade 2, ready, set, take off, students are up and away as they learn about the age of aviation. This one is a great one for students because they get to kind of go back and think about for thousands of years how people have been fascinated with flying, right? Students will let their research skills take flight as they explore key figures and concepts from the world of aviation. And we like to think that we're exposing them, remember, multiple perspectives is tied throughout all of these to folks they haven't heard about before, right? Like Louis Blériot, all around the world, how this was a global venture, right? This opportunity to fly, this curiosity about flying. Women were in that too. Aira de Acosta and Alberto Santos Dumont. And then we take them back to the US with Tuskegee Airmen and get to learn about how valuable they were as aviators in our country. And of course, Amelia Earhart as well. So many others, too many to name right now. But students are studying the science of flight. They get to even get into a little bit of the science behind aviation a bit. Some of the physics concepts and ways that are developmentally appropriate for students. We're presenting those. And in this unit, as a culminating task, all of the time, formatively, students are, again, you see this running thread here, right? The inquiry piece is there, the student inquiry. They're developing questions. They're researching their answers about them. They get to go on adventures using their language, right? Not like me, I had to go the newspapers and actual tangible newspapers and my aunt's encyclopedia collection. No more. So students are getting to get on the web. They get to do the searches. They get to partner with our folks like at readworks.org, as I mentioned. They get to look into text on their own, work with the librarians in the school at the onset of all of these units, right? So that they have some sources readily available and multimedia to answer their own questions, to really feed that curiosity and inquiry that students are having. They use their research here to write about the pioneers of aviation. And then again, they will have an opportunity to present to the class. In grade 3 gets really exciting for students. They get to be really exposed in an experiential way to the art form of jazz. They take the A train uptown for all that jazz. And this is really a unit that introduces students to some of the vibrant art, literature, music, and culture. Like there's a lot of intersectionality here that we're exposing students to. Culture of the Roaring '20s and the later jazz age in America, where students are researching skills, using their research skills to find deeper connections between the works of musicians of the jazz age. And here's the connective tissue, right? That connection strand, connecting that to musicians of today. So they get to maybe look at, once they learn about and build that background knowledge about jazz musicians, connecting that to a musician they like today. So students are developing in this unit a whole research plan to gather information about a famous jazz musician and a contemporary musician. They'll use search engines and text and multimedia. They're answering their own questions, and they use the information gathered to compose 2 essays throughout this unit. One about each of the artists they have selected, and they get to choose that. They have some autonomy in all of these. And then building their own essay around a contemporary artist as well. And they get to present on the two artists. So we're really excited about all that jazz. In grade 4, for students, we are helping them to think about our future, the future that we will all inherit, through this idea and this lens of this knowledge domain of energy. They are studying the story of energy on a grand scale, going all the way back to Patillo Higgins and the discovery at Spindletop, thinking critically about the future through the story of William Kakwamba, right? So they then go to the continent of Africa a bit, and we bring it on back home as they think about hydro energy and new cutting edge energy sources that are going to help us to be more sustainable, renewable energy technologies of tomorrow, if you will. Here in this unit, students are writing an argumentative essay on renewable energy sources and presenting that work in a multimedia presentation that includes primary and secondary sources. So this is a great one for students, especially those students in terms of multiple perspectives, students who are really, really more science driven and geared towards science, technology, and all of those things. This one really helps support that curiosity. Finally, but last but not least, grade 5. Grade 5 unit, this one here is called Beyond Juneteenth, 1865 to present. And you can see there just by that title that this unit is building foundational knowledge about June 19th, 1865, what that meant to our country and means today. They learn about that day that was marked in history as Juneteenth. And then they use that as a launch board to go on to learn about so many African Americans who have contributed to really the fabric of our nation in ways that are different, we think. They get to learn about day-to-day things like the traffic sign and pencil sharpeners, things that were invented by Black people. They get to learn about things that they use every day and even look at patents of inventions of African Americans. They get to look at those as primary sources. Students are also learning about scholars, writers, activists, and allies, bringing it home even to have an opportunity to learn about children who are activists, such as in Flint, Michigan with the water crisis, or bringing that arts perspective home, that artist and writer perspective home with Amanda Gorman, and maybe learning a little bit more about our first National Youth Poet Laureate, excuse me. So here they really get to look at the breadth and life of the African American contribution in ways that really open up the possibilities for them, that really speak to the common cause that our country should be grounded on, right? They get to think about that a little bit. We also help to have, again, some intersectionality with the civil rights movement in a way that's a little bit different. And they think about how that might be compared and contrasted to the migrant farmer movement, right? As they learn about Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta. So in this unit, they're going to use their own inquiry to research and produce informative writing on Juneteenth and beyond. They get to choose any of these domains, right? Education, humanities, because they do learn about lift every voice and sing what that song means. They get to look at a text, sing a song about that, get to read that. Science, innovation, and activism within the time frame of 1865 to present. So really the possibilities for students, we want to spark an interest and we want them to go on that journey to learn a little bit more. So if these are making you all a hashtag curious inquirer, I told you that would be coming back, right? I want you to reach out to your account executives for additional information about these transformative units of study that were designed to truly center multiple perspectives of knowledge building for students by encouraging them to make connections formatively in the teaching and learning process. And if you are a hashtag curious inquirer, we think this afternoon or even on Twitter, we're going to have that hashtag going. So we love to hear your stories about your own curiosity, how that was sparked, and even some of your students, the questions that they may have while they're learning in their CKLA units. But we're not done. My colleague Tory is going to share how CKLA's thoughtful consideration of multiple perspectives for students goes beyond the text and historical figures, and literally, you'll see what I mean, jumps off of the pages in our newly illustrated decodable readers. Tory?
Thank you so much, Baria. You know, it's always so incredible to hear you speak about our research units. It makes me wish that I was a CKLA student so much, because I was definitely a curious inquirer growing up, and even in my littlest years really wanted to seek out more information, especially the way that art was created around the world. And as part of this project in re-illustrating our K2 decodable skills readers, it was actually a way to travel around the world and also travel around the country and invite an incredible team of illustrators to personalize these stories. We, for this series, kept the decodability and the content as is, but we still reimagined how each of these readers was presented. And so you'll see that in kindergarten, first and second grade, a familiar title with a completely new and exciting look and feel that maybe you never thought was possible if you happen to currently be a teacher in CKLA and teaching using these skills decodable readers already. And so I think that the magic of this work is really to be able to bring authenticity with how these new storylines are captured and the connection of each artist to the culture that they're presenting with each book. So both kindergarten, first grade, and second grade are all going to be receiving a very fresh look and feel to these stories. Of course, it wouldn't be possible without an incredible team, which I was able to work with really granularly and helping each illustrator take their own personal experience when working on a reader and infuse, whether it's their humor or their journey, you know, their culture, their identity, letting that voice be translated into the work of art that each reader became. I think that picture books are so important in giving students the fuel to be curious, to spark just the wonder and the transformation of traveling to a world that really we wanted to allow for that same kind of travel to be possible in the readers in the classroom too, so that as you're learning to read, you're also imagining the power of this vehicle can provide you with going on this journey. So the stronger of a reader you are, the more opportunity there is for you to visit these worlds. And it wouldn't be possible without a team of individuals that could lend their own enthusiasm to creating these worlds and making them so magical. And so what I'm going to do is just talk a little bit about some of these books and share a little bit about each of the artists in kindergarten, first and second grade, just so that you all can kind of travel along with me. Pet Fun is a big book in kindergarten, and Isabel Hedrick worked on these illustrations. The reason why authenticity is really important when making art for young kiddos is because the amount of research that you would ordinarily need to do to demonstrate what a farm or a city looks like, or what a certain culture looks like, is instantly reduced because you happen to already live within it. It's your own life experience. And so for Pet Fun, it was such a delight working with Isabel, who happens to live in the middle of rural Pennsylvania. And so everyday life is part of farm life for her. And so even though this is a kind of reader with quite sparse text, she was still able to really ground it in an identity that feels like very, I can see myself, visiting the surroundings where Isabel lives. And I know that she was super excited to be able to just insert these parts of her everyday life into stories that are very simple, but are still a delight for students. And when they learn about each new word and therein learn about a new character, they instantly become more connected with what it is that they're reading and with the experience of reading and with the power that reading unlocks for them. And so there will always be humor that will also be unlocked both in the illustrations, but also in the narrative as well. Kit is another reader in kindergarten, and it was an amazing, just serendipitous luck to be able to work with Oli Oli, who happens to be an illustrator from Maui, Hawaii. And they created this reader for us from completely just transforming what it means to be Kit and taking her story to the island of Maui and placing Kit into the environment that was completely genuine for Oli. And so this character suddenly comes off what was previously a white page into this incredible, lush island filled with just the richness of the flora and fauna and the everyday life that a kid growing up on the island could have. This wouldn't be possible if, we could have tried to pull this off if Oli wasn't from the island of Maui, but just because they happen to be from this location, they were able to just lend so much more voice and personal experience to the character design, to all the little details of the creatures in the story, just feeding into that source for curiosity for students. And I think what's most important in this project, and I would encourage everybody here to really think about where you come from and who your students are, and imagine like how it would feel for them to actually see themselves in these stories, see their own stories represented, their own families represented, their own friendships, communities represented. And it just so happens that, if this book happens to reach kids who are located in Hawaii, how incredible would it be? Similarly, was the story for Sam, illustrated by Maya Sain and Parker Nia Gordon. This was our amazing illustration duo. They're based in Memphis, and the entire concept was from taking Sam and placing this story into Memphis, Tennessee, and thinking about like the environments and the families structure, and just how if Sam were to be raised local to this city and the neighboring towns, like what would life be like for Sam? And so Mia and Parker both worked so hard to just develop the character design and the just lively and super cute style for Sam and his parents and his friends and the community that's based off of Memphis. And I think what was really delightful is that Maya and Parker were so fun just because they had to collaborate, and they happened to be taking a place where they actually literally live and placing it into the story for us. It just felt so genuine and so exciting that their joy just translated so seamlessly into the artwork that it's just such a pleasure to, imagine the moment where kids in the localities of Tennessee come upon this book and see like, oh, wow, I can kind of even recognize like where this might take place. The story then goes into the local parklands and then moves through different, classroom environments, and you get to meet Sam's character's cast of friends and kind of hang out with them in the reader. And so all this text was still previously here, but it's been completely reimagined and adapted to a story and a voice that is completely genuine. And so I think that's really like the key of this project for these newly illustrated readers, is just to give them that authenticity of voice and to make them feel recognizable to students so that they can see themselves being represented and they can feel excited to keep learning more, keep practicing the art of reading, and keep building their foundational skills. Kate's book is another incredible story. We had 3 illustrators working together on this grade 1 reader, including Oli and Deva, and really like having Darby Raymond Overstreet on this project, who is herself Navajo and comes from New Mexico, was just such an incredible experience of just the merging of worlds and the partnership between these illustrators to develop the storyline and style for Kate's book. And you can see that we've incorporated even some of the Navajo patterning inside of the ornamentation throughout the story, as well as the character design for all the new individuals featured in this story. And we now have Doba and we have Sani, which have been actually tweaked in the content to be the grandparents to Kate, or that authoritative figure from the community for this story. And we worked with the NIEA organization to really make sure that we were being as thoughtful as possible to the Indigenous perspective when bringing these stories to life, including this folktale of the Spider Woman from Navajo culture, which Darby helped us illustrate and really just understand. And it was just so wonderful to hear her explain like the importance of this character to the tribe culture and just to the people that share this perspective. And I think it's incredibly important to be able to tell this story with that point of view. And it's such a pleasure to be able to bring this group of artists together to be part of the skills readers. And this is one of I think for me personally, one of our greatest achievements is to be able to include all these authentic perspectives that are so different from each other and that lend such an incredible new voice to decodable content. Just also to keep going, Emily comes from California, and she is of Mexican culture. She's a Mexican American, and she took Kay Martez, which is a story about 2 kids kind of meeting and introducing being introduced to Mexico and Mexican culture as they travel down to meet the family and friends of of their friends. And so like it's so great for Emily to have been given the opportunity to show this part of her heritage through the experience of Kay meeting Martez and learning more about his culture as she journeys to visit him in Mexico. I think Emily's just natural illustration style was so intuitive in bringing the richness of Mexican culture, just the vivaciousness of all of the like variety of landscape and just like liveliness of the architecture and the food and the markets of this journey that the characters took. And I think what's amazing is that this artwork will allow students to get a glimpse of that story, get a glimpse of that journey, and travel along with Kay and with Martez into Mexico and really learn a little bit about just the beauty of this place that's so close to the United States that we can literally visit it in our cars. Just it is just a drive away. And so I think that, it was really just so exciting to have Emily lend her style, which is so rich with color and with her own enthusiasm and love for this heritage that she holds and she wants to get close to. But I really believe that this energy will then also resonate with other students who may be looking for that type of connection with either their own heritage or with their history, or just give them more opportunity to be curious about, the world around them, and also possibly even the culture that could be around them here in the United States, depending on where they live in different communities. And so finally, I want to talk about Job Hunt. This was another partnership between Amy Hsu and Isabel Hedrick. And Amy really worked out the character design and just all of the realistic locations within Job Hunt. This is a story of this older sister who's a college student, and she's looking for a part-time job, and she goes around New York City trying to figure out what the heck to do. And so Amy really brought her Chinese heritage. She's a Chinese Canadian. She's been working with us. She currently has been living in the United States, and she's been working with us to really make the voice of this story feel very genuine in just not just featuring the Chinese identity in this particular story, but also just some of the other cultures and moments that are visible in New York. So I think students will be taking quite a journey actually in this Job Hunt reader. And I would also add that Isabel played a major role in introducing the fantasy of all the whimsy that Kurt, the younger brother, has about, where it is that his mind naturally goes whenever he learns something new about the possibility of a new job, like working in a zoo, being a tiger tamer. I'm not sure if that's part of the actual content, but that is where his mind might go. And so really, this is, I think, such a beautiful and powerful way. All these readers are such a powerful way to let kids travel, to let them meet new characters, to let them see characters that resemble themselves, and to be invested in reading and to be invested in learning more about just the narrative of these stories. And I think if that was already sort of happening in our previous version of these decodable readers, it will only be even stronger. I think that curiosity will be even more powerful. And the cycle that, Baria, you were talking about of windows and mirrors will be just all the more emphasized by using these newly illustrated decodable readers for practicing reading. So I'm so excited to have been able to work on this project and to bring on this team and have them really lend their voice to transforming each story to be something completely different from what it was before, even though the text very much stayed close to home. So that's really as much as I can say. I would love to say more, but I think that we are probably out of time for this webinar to talk about the readers, but I hope that we'll get a chance to also bring more of these illustrators to you and let you also meet them yourselves and let your students meet them too, either through the content or through future projects with CKLA or maybe through future webinars. So I just want to say thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to talk about all this new work and all these enhancements to the curriculum. We're so excited to be able to offer this for you guys and to offer this for your classrooms, both in the knowledge research units and also in the skills readers. In case you don't know, we do have an Instagram account, and I happen to have a very close relationship with the design team that happens to run it. But what's important to note is that we often feature teachers, We feature student work, we talk about authors in our products, and we also showcase the art and the knowledge stories that are part of our curriculum. So if you want to learn more, or if you just want to have a nice snapshot into the worlds that you've been looking at during this webinar, please stop in and send us a note and follow the account.
Absolutely. And Tory, I just want to say, you all, obviously this is an abbreviated preview of all that lies, all of the possibilities that lie between the pages of these new units and within the decodable readers. And there are so many possibilities, we think, for sparking students' curiosity and inquiry through all of these. That will be transformative, I think, for many, many years to come. So if you have more information about that, I think we posted some of the ways that you can do that, touching base with your account executives, and they'll give you more information about implementation guidance and all of those things. But I wanted to leave us with one final quote on curiosity. And this is one that this curious inquirer sort of stumbled upon just in my own reading. This is actually a Brené Brown quote, but I think it's very, very poignant for the times we are in, and definitely to frame what we've been talking about today. And it is this: in these challenging moments of dissonance, we need to stay curious and resist choosing comfort over courage. It's brave to invite new information to the table, to sit with it and hear it out. It's also rare these days. So on that note, be courageous, have courage, and be curious inquirers, and foster that within your own students. And we'd like to think that we're giving you something to sort of feed that, something on from a pedagogical perspective to feed that curiosity and inquiry. And again, thank you so very much for your time today. We hope to see those curious inquirer hashtags all over social media.
Thank you so much, Baria and Tory. That was a wonderful presentation. It was so exciting to see the beautiful illustrations and the preview of the research units. Everything is gorgeous, and I can tell that all of our attendees feel the same way. We had a lot of compliments in the chat about how beautiful everything looked, and someone even said that prior to learning about these new readers, one of her teachers had a really interesting conversation with her students about CKLA, or resulting from a CKLA decodable. So she's excited about what can happen with these new readers. We have a few questions. Since we have a couple minutes, I thought we could answer some of these. So firstly, can you go over again what grades and subjects the research units and the skills readers are available for?
So the research units are covering grades K through 5, and they are part of our core knowledge language arts program. So there are definitely some ways that they can be implemented. We have a little bit of flexibility that we're offering districts, but first just piquing interest about them, and then having further discussions down the line in terms of the ways that these can be implemented. I saw some people in the chat talking about that intersection of science and social studies, and definitely enrichment periods are great places, flex periods and things for these new research units. So that's on the research units. Tory, you have anything about the readers to add?
I would just add that the readers are going to be available for K through 2 students. They are available right now. So that is something that you should have access to if you happen to be a part of a school or a district teaching CKLA for early elementary.
Thank you so much. And just to add on to what Baria and Tory just said, if you do have any specific questions, please reach out to your account executive or fill out the contact sales form on amplify.com, and you'll get the specific help you need and answers to your questions that way. Another question we had was, why are these materials being made available? Is the CKLA curriculum incomplete without them?
No, as we know, CKLA is already a rich program, but these, I like to think that we started by framing this idea of sort of that gap of the student voice, the student autonomy, and really sparking their own interest and curiosity. And these particular units are intended to do just that, while embedding multiple perspectives and cultures for students to have more opportunities to see themselves possibly. So we think that this is a great way to augment the already wonderful program that we offer at CKLA.
Great. Did you have anything to add, Tory? I don't want to cut you off.
I would just say that, I think Amplify CKLA acknowledges that authenticity is really important, and that it is quite exciting to be able to bring these new voices to just classrooms and to be put into the hands of students. So in strengthening just the impact of the program, we spent the time and the effort to bring together illustrators from around the country to be strengthening that connection to the students that are also all over the United States who use Amplify CKLA. So really, like Baria said, it's an augmentation, it's an enhancement. It's not anything that was missing, it's just a way to make it even better and even more impactful.
And I just want to echo that, as Tory and Baria have said, this is really enhancing the already great curriculum that is found in CKLA. So again, CKLA is not incomplete without these, but it's going to enrich the experience students and teachers have. And we're just about out of time. So I just want to thank everyone again. Baria and Tory, thank you so much for your time and for sharing all this wonderful information with us. Thank you to everyone who joined us here today. We can tell you're excited about these new offerings, and we're excited to be able to share them with you. I want to note a couple of things. First of all, these backgrounds that you see behind Tory and myself, you're going to get them in an email tomorrow as part of a free digital swag bag. Tory and her team designed 3 different Zoom backgrounds, a desktop background, and a poster that will be linked in the email coming tomorrow, which will also have the link to the recording in case you'd like to rewatch or share it with anyone. And for everyone here with us today, you'll also get a certificate of attendance. And I also want to take one more second to remind everyone that we have lots more webinars in this series. We have so much more information to share with you. So visit amplify.com/SOR-everyone to find out more about the upcoming webinars, including the 2 listed here next week, the latest on the knowledge gap, which is hosted by Natalie Wexler, and the importance of dual language assessment, and how to deliver it in your classroom, hosted by Dr. Lillian Duran. We really hope to see you there. You can also see a link, or you can also register to watch the recording of our first webinar, which took place on Monday of this week. And you can find out about all the other exciting webinars we have in this series. Don't forget also to share your stories on social media with the hashtag #CuriousInquirer. We'd love to hear what you have to say. And I believe we'll have a dialogue going back and forth. And thank you again so much for your time and for joining us and for all of your excitement and wonderful questions. If you have other specific questions, please reach out to your account executives or the contact sales form on amplify.com, and have a wonderful day. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.